Have you ever felt as if you were being judged by something you didn't do, while the whole sky remained silent? And if I told you that this silence wasn't abandonment but strategy? You are not here by chance. Something bigger brought you to this video. What you are about to hear will touch truths that many have tried to bury. Here there is no coincidence. There is an answer. There is confirmation. There is justice in motion. If this has already moved you, click now like, because each like shows the algorithm that the truth still matters. Subscribe to the channel so as not to lose any word that can be exactly what your soul was asking for silence. And if this message is already resonating in your spirit, comment on number 22 here. This will be our sacred code of identification. It will show that you are part of this generation that the sky is raising now. What you will find out in this video, you can completely change the way you understand God's silence. So take a deep breath because the sentence is about to be revealed. And it will not be smooth. It will be definitive. Have you ever wondered what happens when heaven is silent? When does it seem that God is absent, indifferent, without any reaction in the face of injustice? Divine silence is one of the most badly interpreted moments of spiritual existence. Many see this silence as abandonment, as if the universe were allowing chaos to overcome. But the truth is much deeper. When heaven is silent, it is not because he forgot. It is because it is watching, archiving, building the type of justice that cannot be contested. God's silence is the foreshadowing of the most relentless judgment. It is the time when he collects every word whispered in the shadows, every malicious look, every cruel gesture that was on unpunished. And when everything is registered, he does not respond with words. He responds with verdites. While you cried secret, it endured silent. Without understanding the reason for such persecution, there was a movement in the invisible. It seemed that nothing happened, that no one saw his pain, that evil had won. But that was the exact moment when the heavenly court began to form. God was not just listening, he was calling justice, and not any justice. One that does not need an audience or public approval. One that descends as a wave that cannot be contained. Silence, once considered a punishment, now reveals its true nature. The pause that precedes the roar. The trial is underway, not against you, but against those who tried to touch what was sacred. This is the kind of war that is not looked at with swords, but with hidden truths. When the sky finally gets up, there is no negotiation. It is correction. It is replacement of honor. It is divine answer. And every second of silence you endured turns into a sentence against those who have feeded on your pain. This is no longer a survival, but spiritual replacement. The time of patience is over. Now the sky speaks, and speaks loudly. They not only told lies, they rewritten their history as if they had authority over their destiny. They did it naturally, as if it were right to shape their image, as if their silence were permission. And while your names were exalted over the ruins of your reputation, you remained quiet, not because it was weak, but because it understood that the time of truth is always slower, but relentless. They thought they were deceiving the world, but they forgot that the true author of his story was listening and noting everything. Each lie said, every distorted sentence, was recorded as proof. Not on earth, where opinion is volatile, but in heaven, where justice does not fail. They were not just talking about you. They were talking against the divine choice that fell on you. The arrogance was such that they thought it could convince God himself that you did not deserve what was given to you. They did not only attack their image, attacked their essence. They judged their character as if they had access to their soul. And in doing so, they crossed a spiritual line that should never be overcome, to accuse an innocent before the supreme judge. Now each word spit with poison becomes a sentence against the aggressors themselves. What once seemed to be just gossip or opinion is treated in heaven as a spiritual crime. God does not need you to argue, defend himself, or prove your innocence. The very lie they told will be the hammer of the trial, because it does not lie on a chosen one without provoking a divine reaction. The time of grace has run out. Now is the time of the answer. Thus, the deepest wound was not what they said about you. It was the fact that when they attack you, they were telling God that he made a mistake. They looked at your life and decided that you didn't deserve to be chosen. You were not enough. It was not visible enough. It was not the right kind of person to carry such a sacred purpose. With this, they put themselves in the place of God himself, questioning his wisdom, his decisions, his plan. This was not just ego. It was rebellion. And every rebellion against the divine order requires a reckoning. They didn't hate you for you. They hated you for those who chose you. Their presence exposed the rejection they themselves carried in silence. You were the reminder that God is still surprising in the choice, still honors the broken, still raises the rejected. This dismantled them. Then instead of bending before divine sovereignty, they decided to combat the heavenly plan itself trying to destroy you. It was an attack on God's project, disguised as a personal opinion, and it never comes out cheap. Now the price is being charged, not with human revenge but with sacred justice. They will have to learn that God does not change their mind because of the cry of the envious, that your choice is irrevocable, and when someone tries to overthrow what the sky erected, it is crushed by the weight of its own resistance, because what was sealed on purpose cannot be undone by vanity. What most annoyed your enemies is not what you did, but what you stopped doing. You didn't retaliate. It didn't shouted, did not expose, it did not level, and that disconcerted them, because they were ready for a dirty war, but you insisted on staying clean. His innocence, his peace, his calm, all this was like salt in open wounds. They expected you to fall into the reaction trap, but you chose the way of serenity, and that's exactly where hell panicked. Their light, even wounded, bothered the darkness they carried disguised as authority and religiosity. You have become a mirror, and no one wants to face your own shadow when trying to look like light. His purity was not just virtue, it was silent accusation, and that made every step of his expose their masks. They wanted blood, but you offered silence. They wanted scandal, and you prayed. This did not calm them, it raged them. Now that same peace that kept you standing becomes your most powerful weapon. Because she proved that you were not fragile, it was firm. And in the face of this truth, there is no disguise to protect them. The coming justice is not just against what they did, it is in favor of what you sustained. The sky is returning twice every second you have been unjustly persecuted, and the sword of peace is falling with divine precision. They thought they were testing you, your faith, your patience, your identity, but they never realized that all the time they were being tested. His suffering was the revelation of their hearts. Every attitude they took against you, every word said, every choice made, was like a spiritual magnifying glass about your souls. And what God saw there, it was not worthy. They were not just injuring an innocent. They were condemning themselves to reveal who they really are when they think no one is looking. The sky didn't need you to prove anything. Its resistance was already enough proof. God knew you would endure. What he wanted to show was how far his aggressors would go, if they would choose compassion or cruelty. And they failed, repeatedly. They had a chance to stop, rethink, change their attitude. But they preferred to deepen the poison, recruit allies, and celebrate destruction. The judgment that is now forming is a direct result of these decisions. They placed themselves on the defendants without realizing it. Now the curtain is rising, and the real plot is being revealed. You were the bait, but the target has always been them. You were the provocation needed to expose the most rotten within hearts full of pride. They didn't fall because you wanted to. They fell because they chose. And now it is not you who will be judged. It is you who will witness the sentence. During all this time when you walked with a broken heart and eyes attentive to the sky, thinking it was alone, something extraordinary happened in the invisible. Every tear, every word contained, every time you chose integrity instead of revenge, everything was being noted. The sky was not silent out of indifference. I was silent by strategy. As they plotted to the hidden, God was collecting evidence, not in search of an emotional verdict, but an unquestionable spiritual sentence. He does not hurry, because he knows the weight of the truth. And in that case, he prepared something no one can avoid. What many called weakness was actually proof. His meekness was a weapon. Your weight was tactical. While their enemies felt untouchable, celebrating every low blow, the sky filed everything. They confused patience with permission. But what the secret plan of heaven teaches is that God allows the theater so that at the right time, the cloth will fall, and everyone see who was really being evaluated. The justice curtain does not open to shows. It opens for revelations, and every registered gesture now becomes part of the judgment they have never expected to face. The time of the exhibition has arrived, and it will not be with scandals, but with truth. wide open. The plan was more complex than it seemed. It was not just about their redemption but about unmasking manipulators. And the most impressive is that you didn't have to raise your voice. All you did was continue. The rest, the sky made a point of registering. And now, this heavenly file will be the foundation of justice that comes as a storm. There are times when heaven does not send words, sends actions. And when this happens, there is no door that is closed, no lie that remains standing. Sacred fury is not uncontrolled. It is accurate. It is the moment when God ceases to just observe to start correcting. When silence ends, it does not come with explanations. It comes with consequences. And that is the exact point where we are. Justice is no longer a promise. Now it's reality. And every second you were stepped on becomes a spark of judgment. They moved in their faith, discredited from their divine choice. They played with the name of God as if he was not listening. But they were wrong. He was more present than ever, just waiting for the measure of evil to overflow. And now it has overflowed. Sacred fury does not seek cheap revenge. It seeks order replacement, spiritual realignment. And what is coming is not to cause free pain. It is to correct a mistake that should never have happened. They moved the Anointed One like anyone. God does not need to scream to be heard. Just a move and everything changes. And when he moves with fury, it is not by whim, it is by justice. This is not a war between people, it is a reckoning between heaven and human pride. And in this arm wrestling, there is no doubt about who will prevail. The time has arrived. The silence was broken, and divine action has begun. And the fear they felt of you was never about you. It was about what you were about to become. They saw, even before you realized the signs of your ascension, the glow that grew, the authority that was formed, the promise that was beginning to take shape, and that terrified them. Because if you became what God had promised, all the lies you told would fall apart. The future that awaited you was the biggest threat to the illusion they built. Then they tried to stop it. They tried to kill the seed before the harvest. The war against you began when your presence began to reveal their falsehood, and despair led them to act quickly in cruelty. It was not just envy, it was survival. To keep their facades, they needed to turn off their light, and that's why they attacked such intensity, trying to break your spirit before you could flourish. But what they did not know is that God himself allowed persecution, not as punishment, but as a scenario for the miracle. The fire that thought you would consume you refined you. Now you are emerging, no more as a promise but as reality. And that is the answer to all the fear they tried to design about you. You don't have to prove anything. Its existence is proof. You don't have to answer. Your presence already condemns. They feared what you would become, and now they don't have to fear anymore, because it's too late. There is a difference between being rejected by men and being rejected by God. And you have never been rejected by God, but they wanted to make you believe it. They put you in an informal judgment, spread poisons, sown narratives where you were the villain of a story you didn't even participate. And the goal was clear, demoralizing your image until no one else believed in you. They tried to crucify you, not with nails, but with words, not with whip, but with looks. But they forgot a detail. You were in the hands of the sky. They gathered as judges without authority, prosecutors without truth, witnesses without honor. They created a symbolic cross and hung you on her, waiting for her voice to die there. But the sky did not consent, because what was supposed to be the end became the beginning. That pain, that exile, that slander, was all part of a sacred process. What they called condemnation, God called consecration. They thought they buried you, but in fact they planted you. And now when they thought they had won, God reveals their plans, his resurrection. Not literal, but spiritual, social, emotional. You are getting up. No more hidden, no more silent. And every person who participated in the silent crucifixion now watches perplexed to revelation. Because what has been sealed by heaven, nor can the furious crowd be from. Eddie. They saw you suffer and thought they were winning. They thought God's silence was absence, that their pain was a sign of defeat. But as you cried in silence, God wrote, line by line, word by word, the sentence that now begins to be read aloud. You didn't waste time. You have accumulated justice. Each sleepless night, every unquoted tear, was paint in the role of the divine answer. And now this judgment becomes public. God does not hurry his processes because he works perfectly. While they celebrated, he architected. As you fought to stand up, he built the bridge that would take him out of the valley. Nothing was in vain. Nothing was wasted. Even his weakness served as proof. Heaven uses even its silence as an argument, because those who walk with purpose do not need to scream to be heard. Your pain spoke louder than any accusation, and it was she who shaped the sentence. Now the roles are reversed. You leave the defendant bank and assume the place of witness, and those who have hidden behind false smiles will have to face the truth written by God himself. There is no appeal. There is no appeal. The trial was fair, and the sentence, divine. What seemed a silent drama on earth was actually a judgment in progress in heaven. No human court summoned witnesses, no earthly judge hit the hammer. But in the invisible, the heavenly court was in the middle of the session, and there the rules are different. There, no defense is required because the truth is supported by itself. There, silence is a proof of faith, and integrity weighs more than any argument. The trial was already ongoing long before any attack, and every attitude against you was recorded as evidence. Those who accused you thought they were exposing you, but they were actually exposing themselves before the throne. Each lie told was one more paragraph in the verdict itself. They watched you like a fall, but they were being measured, heavy, evaluated. The invisible court does not need an audience because its decision echoes in the visible. When heaven judges, no one disputes. When the sky decides, there is no influence it reveals. Now the session is about to end. The sky has already deliberated. The sentence has already been written. And the next chapter of your life will be the execution of this justice, replacement of honor, restoration of name, and complete revelation of truth. Not because you cried for it, but because you survived the process with purity of soul. The court of heaven acts in silence, but its sentence is resounding. And they did not need to choose you as a target, but they chose, because in their hearts there was a thirst for sacrifice. Someone needed to pay for the discomfort they felt within themselves, and since you were too light for the eyes used to darkness, it was you who launched to the fire. Your mistakes were exaggerated, their virtues were distorted. His presence became a threat, and so they tried to erase her. They used you as a spiritual bushing to justify your own flaws, but they did not have a variable. You were chosen, and the chosen one is not disposable. You carried the cross that they themselves built not by merit but by mission. Heaven allowed the sacrifice, but not as a defeat, as a scenario. Because now, before the same audience you have seen you be humiliated, God is getting you up. And not just getting up, but turning you into testimony. The pain they thought would destroy you became a living proof that there is divine justice. The suffering they wanted to use as a brand is now the scar that shows that you have won. Today, your name comes back to circular, but not as before. Now it carries weight, history, glory. You not only survived, you have become a reference. What was supposed to be the end became the beginning. The sacrifice became a platform, and the sky signs below. This is the testimony of those who endured the fire and came out gold. And they built reputations at the expense of their fall. They made alliances based on lies on you. They used their name to attract attention, generate empathy, manipulate opinions, and as you rebuilt in silence, they paraded over the rubble of your image. But they forgot a fundamental detail. Nothing built upon the lie remains standing forever. The time of the great reversal has come, and who used his pain as a step now watches the ladder collapse. The truth begins to leak, as water that finds any slit, and where before there was audience for humiliation, now there is silence. The masks fall, the alliances break, the confidence they enjoyed begins to erode, because what was apparently solid was just staging. In the meantime, without fuss, you grow up, gains strength, and, more importantly, credibility. The return is not noisy, it is evident. The reversal that the sky performs is not to take revenge, it is to restore you. And this restoration is public, so that no one will confuse the result coincidentally. The stage that have set up for their shame now becomes the space where they will be confronted with the truth they tried to hide. Divine justice does not need to ask for permission. She arrives and changes everything. At some point they tried to make you disappear. They deleted their names of conversations, excluded your presence from places where you built history. They reduced their existence to a shadow that did not even be mentioned. But there was a fatal mistake in this plane. His name was not written by their mouth, it was written by the hands of God. And now, that name they wanted to bury is being carved in gold at the top of the story that the sky is telling. Each attempted cancellation, every slander, every forced absence was like gasoline thrown on the altar where your memory now burns in glory. Because when God decides to exalt, there is no system to hold. His trajectory will not be remembered for the pain he suffered, but for the renaissance he starred in. Your name is not just restored, it is promoted, and who tried to rewrite it now can only watch. The honor that comes from heaven does not need marketing. It imposes itself by the truth. She is supported by justice, and it always comes in the right time. That time has come, and what was once whispered as an accusation will now be proclaimed as an example. His name, who tried to erase, will be remembered as synonymous with overcoming, recorded not on tombstones but in hearts, because what comes from God, no one deletes. You may never have asked for justice. Perhaps you only have asked peace. But God saw that to give you peace, he would first have to rebalance the balance, because there were too many things out of place, and you were the biggest victim of this maladjustment. This was not revenge. Revenge is human. What is happening now is justice, sacred, undeniable, powerful, and she arrived, not with hatred, but with order, not with scandal, but truth. She arrived to correct, to clean, to close cycles. You didn't move heavens and land to make it happen. You just continued. He kept walking, crying, believing, and this walk in silence was what caused the sky. Now, who said nothing would happen is watching the unexpected happen. What was hidden came to light. What was doubt became certain, and the answer did not come in the form of noise but of honor. You are not winning because you shouted louder. It's winning because you have resisted more time. This justice is yours, but it is also proof for many. Proof that the sky does not sleep, that good is not useless, that the light, however suffocated, always finds a crack to shine. You are not avenging. You are being justified. And this is bigger than any rematch. This is redemption. And she arrived.